Good evening. Welcome to the March 14th, 2023 Murrysville Planning Commission meeting. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, please call roll.
Mr. Lemke?
Here.
Ms. Hoy?
Here.
Mr. Midal?
Here.
Mr. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. Olszewski? Mr. Kearns?
Here.
Mr. Levesque?
Here.
That eyeball up there is Ms. Hoy. Be careful what you say, because you put the Maloik on you.
He's watching.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda is a public hearing. Take public comment on an application of Sushil Shinde and, I'm gonna slaughter this, and Keith, for the rezoning of approximately 19.3 acres of land, tax parcels 4910, 13-0-0014 on Logan's Ferry Road, from R1 residential to R2 residential. Is someone here representing the applicant?
Hello everyone, my name is Sushil Shinde and I'll be representing the project.
Good. Could you hold on a second? All those who are going to testify, will you please stand and be sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. And the testimony you're about to give, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
So, Mr. Morrison,
Yeah.
can you bring up the
Could
presentation?
you put my screen up on the board, please?
So I just have a few slides summarizing the project. This project was presented last year, but it was in a different form. Earlier, we were planning to build townhomes, a mixture of townhomes and single-family homes, and we were requesting rezoning to R3. But since that did not go through, we decided to apply for R2 with a revised plan. So as per the new revised plan, the objective is to build single-family homes only, and approximately our target is to build 5 units based on the topography of the land and the constraints that we have on the available property. So we are asking to rezone from R1 residential to R2 residential for better utilization of the land that we have. Next slide, please. So this is the current zoning map in that area, and the property that is in the question is highlighted in green in that red corner. So if you see the property surrounded by R3 in the back, as well as on the right hand side, and across the street it is mixture of R2 and R3, and on the left hand side it is R1. So the property is surrounded by R2, R3 as well as R1 in the back side. Next slide. So again, the property is shown here with both red and green color. I have subdivided into two because whatever is shown in red has limitation in terms of the topography. It's mainly hilly area, and there is not much we can build under the R1 current residential district. So we are only utilizing the portion that is highlighted in green, and that's where we want to build the proposed 5 units under the R2, which will allow us to utilize the area properly. Next slide. So as per the rezoning, as I discussed, the parcel is surrounded by R3 and R2 district as well. So the minimum lot area with public sewage, as we know, as per the regulation, for R1 it is 1 acre, and for R2 we'll be able to build with minimum half acre plot size. And R2 rezoning will allow us additional 1 unit compared to the existing R1 zoning. Next slide. So this is the current condition of the land. You can see there are 2 barns in the back. Next slide. So you can see the green area that was highlighted. It's on the left-hand side where you can see those two barns in the corner. Next slide, please. So the area that we are going to utilize for the building 5 unit is highlighted in that green square or parallelogram, if you may call. Next slide. So we discussed this with our civil engineer firm, McCarthy Gray, Faringer, McCarthy Gray and Company. We are working with Brian Almeter, who is the civil engineer, and he has come up with a proposed sketch that you can see on the right-hand side. So there are 2 1-acre plots in the back, and there are 3 half-acre plots facing the Logan Ferry. And then we are utilizing the existing road that is there, which is highlighted in yellow. And then there is a cul-de-sac in the back, which will allow entry for the rear 1-acre plots behind the property. Next slide. So we did the traffic study. This was also presented part of our earlier rezoning to R3. And here the traffic study was done for the worst case scenario, which is the R3, even though in the current application we are not asking for R3. So just for the comparison, you can see the traffic study was done for R1 current district, as well as the R3, which is the worst case scenario, with number of homes being 16 units, and the number of traffics considered as per the plan are highlighted in the table. So next slide. So as per the traffic study conclusion by the engineer who did the study, there is going to be hardly 2% increase in the traffic if we go for the worst case scenario, which is R3, which we are not asking for R3 in this application, and we are going for R2, which reduces the number of units drastically down to 5 from the 16 proposed in the earlier, and that will bring the change in traffic down to 1%. It is not done for R2, but you can see the relationship with the number of units. Next slide.
That's it.
Next, there's one more slide. We also reached out to the sewer authority, and they also gave us in writing that they do have the available taps for the number of units that we are building. So the capacity is already there for the sewage that is required to serve those number of units on that property. So we have done that homework. So from the traffic point of view, if you see the limits are acceptable, well within the statistical limits provided by the study. And also the sewage capacity is also available to serve the proposed 5 units on the. So that's all I have out of my presentation.
Okay. The way we conduct public hearings here, planning commission make any comments or ask any questions. We'll turn it over to the public, those of you who have signed up, just to make any comments that you make. And this is a comment period. It's not necessarily a debate. I was on. Thank you. Okay. Planning Commission members, any comments, questions for the applicant?
No, not from me. I'd like to hear from the public.
Okay. Ryan, you're not.
Nothing.
Anything?
Public?
Okay. No comments from the Planning Commission. I just had a question. What you outlined in green,
So the green shows the area. Sorry. So the area that was highlighted in green is the proposed area where we will be building the 5 units under R2. Because the remaining area that was highlighted in red is pretty much occupied by the hilly terrain, and which will not be suitable for the R2 and R1. So there is a limitation.
but you're rezoning the whole piece.
Rezoning the whole piece, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Lee Kincaid.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay,
You can hold it in your hand if you prefer.
that's all right. Well, don't get discouraged, because I've been told by the groundhog spring is coming, so
Yeah, right.
it'll warm up here one of these days. Anyway, my name is Lee Kincaid. I live at 3352 Logan Ferry Road with my wife. We've had that property since 1984, so we've been there just shy of 40 years. So we've seen a lot of things happen in the area there. And as I did last summer, I'm going to have to once again voice my opposition to the rezoning of that parcel for a couple of reasons. Mainly, Murraysville has not fixed the infrastructure problem there on Logan Ferry Road. I mean, it may seem minimal that you're going to put maybe a few more, so it says, a few more vehicles out on the road, but we're at capacity now, if not beyond. We got a major just across the road to get my mail, which isn't good. Friday afternoons, Friday evenings, traffic is backed up the whole way to my driveway. And it's an issue getting in and out because people don't want to leave me come in and out. And we got a problem down by the bridge. So I think, before we build any more houses, along Logan Ferry Road, let's get the infrastructure fixed there, especially at that intersection. That's a real mess. So I think possibly a traffic count at that end of, I know there's been a traffic survey done by the engineers for this proposal, but as far as a traffic count on Logan Ferry Road, I think it would serve Murraysville to find out just what that volume is. And I think people would be real surprised to see what that volume is. Also, too, I mean, I still think the small stream that runs there, more impervious surfaces, we got to be real careful about that. I'm not a real fan of the thought that these runoff ponds are the end-all, be-all solution. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. So again, that's an issue to deal with there too. And lastly, I don't want to take a lot of time here this evening, but just in reviewing the overall property scheme there, if I recall, and I think maybe the administrator can go back, or Jim can go back and take a look, back years ago when the Clifton Vista Estates were developed and it went through the whole proposal at that time, I thought there was either some discussion or requirement that the north end of that property was to be either turned over or remain a forested area, and then there was some trails to be run up through the area there along Logan Ferry Road. So, I think the commission needs to go back and take a look at the minutes and discussion that was held during that approval. Because I've never heard that that's ever been taken place or ever occurred that's been resolved. So I appreciate your time. Thank you for your service, and again, spring's coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. Next is Vanda Tappan. Did I get that right? Okay.
My name is Vanda Tappan. I live at 273 Rainprint Lane. So this really affects me. I didn't really hear how many units they would be building there. I'd like to have the very basic facts. How many units will be built, single units will be built back there?
The developer's claiming five.
How many, 5?
5.
And how many more would there be room?
No more.
No more.
It would be no more than 5.
That's right.
Okay, then I need to know if all of the, you guys are all bonded? Are you all bonded for a surety bond?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, ma'am.
Is everyone here sitting there bonded?
No.
No, okay. Okay, now, the other thing is the traffic. The traffic is horrendous. I live on Rainprint. Sometimes the cars are backed up, and it takes me at least 20 minutes to get out of there. Now, you say 5 units may not do much, but if there's 2 cars in each one, and then you've got the roads themselves, they're horrible. Logan Ferry Road is horrible. So I don't think it's time to do this. I really don't think it's time till they take care of the infrastructure first. It's only going to cause everybody living in town it's going to really make everybody even later what they want to do. So I'm against it completely. And I've been here 21 years. I've seen it, but I know exactly, I've seen what's happened. This is only going to get worse, and that's my opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the planning commission members are covered by errors and omission insurance, and the developer is required to postpone for the development.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison, for that correction.
Good.
Next person is Cindy Kincaid.
Good evening, everybody. I reiterate what they have said. I have a question. How are you going to grade? You know how the driveway is now? I personally witnessed, because with my husband, we've been there a little over 39 years, at the time Mr. and Mrs. Hornsby lived there. And I personally witnessed her car come down that driveway and go right across Logan Ferry, and it was only by my prayer, I swear on that, that she didn't go down over. It was an icy day, true, but I was wondering how you're going to grade that driveway for the 5 houses that you want to put up there. Because it's steep, and you know that. That's a big safety concern, then come right off Logan Ferry there. I don't begrudge you. I understand you want to make money and sell homes, and I understand that. But we still have to fix a problem we have. And then we have to take that driveway into consideration, especially for those 2 you want to build up further. And you're not planning on building any across the creek down further, right? That's considered, what kind of land would you, it's in R, is it going to stay R1 or is that going to become R2, which is across from my house?
The whole tract of land, the 19.3 acres would be rezoned.
Okay, I understand, okay, it's all going to be rezoned, but no homes are going to be put back there?
Not
Because I remember when
not
Mr.
according to what the applicant has said here tonight.
Okay, because when Mr. Light was with you people, he came to my house one time, had an issue with Mr. Hornsby, and he said he can't build right across from you because it's too close to the creek, and it would interfere with that. So I just want to make sure that's taken into consideration as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob, there's a lady that came in late that I think that wants to speak.
Yeah, there's only 3 people that have signed up here, but if anyone else in the audience want to say anything? Have any comments?
Ma'am, you came late. Do you want to speak about this?
I have a question, that's all.
Well, get sworn in and you can speak.
Can I just ask you?
No, you have to use the microphone, ma'am.
I think the other woman too in the back.
Good evening. My name is
Hold up
Cecil
yours.
Bramman-Breen.
You raise your
Hold up.
right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Cecil Bramman-Breen, 3326 Logan Ferry Road.
Could you use the
hear
microphone,
me?
please?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you. No, I could not hear you.
Want me to repeat my name?
Yes, please.
Cecil Bramham-Breen. And I live on 3326 Logan Ferry Road, right in this plan, proposed plan. I was just wondering if you have a plot plan for what's being proposed. There used to be one a year ago whenever you had the meeting.
There was a
last
slide that was
meeting.
shown here
And
earlier.
I would, it looks as if there's been some changes.
Yes.
And I think it would be very helpful to see what you are proposing to build.
Hold up a second and Mr. Morrison
What our
will bring that back up.
builders are proposing.
That was shown before you arrived.
Beg your pardon?
That was shown before you arrived.
I would like a copy.
Yeah, just hold on a second.
I thought we will be getting a copy here for this meeting. That's one of the reasons I came.
Understand, ma'am, this is for a rezoning request. So if the rezoning is turned down, there won't be a development. So I believe the applicant hasn't gone through all the engineering yet because they're trying to figure out what they're able to build, basically. What it's going to be
What's
zoned
being built is
and what's
extremely
able to be built.
important to the
Bring my screen
people who
up,
live
please.
around there.
Hold on a second.
That is very important.
Here is a rough sketch plan of what is.
Yes, it's hard for me to, I would be very happy to have a copy of that.
We'll see what we can do for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Sir,
I just have a question.
could you give us your name and address, please?
I'm
and
Sanjeev
get-
Jetmalani, and I live in Clifton Vista Estates, which is,
Do you have
around
an
that
address,
area.
sir?
My question would be, I'm sorry, did you ask?
Could you give us an address, please, sir?
Oh, 3513 Regent Court. That's the address.
Thank you.
I didn't hear you. So my question is, I think I'm quite worried, as everybody else said, is the traffic in that little area, and how are the cars going to come from this 5 lots? How are the cars going to come onto the main road? Because that's a safety hazard. So before, you build those houses, make sure that it is safe for all the cars. Where I live in Clifton Vista, there is no stop sign for us to go from Logan Ferry up into the Clifton Vista, and there are 2 stop signs, right and left, and on to the Clifton Vista. It is a very unsafe area. That Logan Ferry Road itself is a very unsafe area because people don't realize that there's no stop sign on the opposite road. I'm talking like when you enter Clifton Vista Estates. It is unsafe, the Logan Ferry Road. And I'm, again, worried, and I'm sure that you guys will plan accordingly, that the safety, not only just the traffic volume is high, but I don't know if it's going to be safe. So that's my comment, and,
Okay.
that's about it.
Thank you, sir. Did somebody else raise their hand back there? Yes, ma'am. Give us.
My name is Lisa Lamarca. I live at 131 Crosswinds Lane in Franklintown, and I've lived there for 46 years because my parents owned the property before I owned it. Because I don't want to admit I'm that old. I spoke to you before on the last time we had this zoning issue. We have 176 units in Franklintown and Brookside condominiums as well. We have one way in and one way out. That includes all of the emergency access. I dare you to try and get any emergency vehicle across the bridge quickly and into our community, whether that be a fire truck, whether that be an ambulance, at the time of the high peak traffic periods. You can have a traffic study, but those of us, we live it. We know how many cars can get in and out of there in quick access at any time. That's one point. The other point is the sewage issue and the drain off issue that we have. We already have behind our homes in Rainprint Square and Crosswinds Lane, the homes that you've targeted with the letters, that those of us that back up against the community that wants to be built below us, we already have an issue behind our homes with losing, every year we lose more and more of the ground that is behind us. That hillside keeps deteriorating every year, more and more and more. If they take away the trees that support it in order to build it, what else is going to happen behind our homes? And then we're going to lose Franklintown property that's eventually going to fall down that hillside. My other point to make was, besides the traffic and the emergency access, how much more can that bridge hold? You're going to have to build a new bridge, because right now, the bridge last year at the end in March and April and May, that bridge had a hole that you could see through down to the creek. Granted, it was patched, but what's going to happen this year once spring comes and from the thawing of the road surface there? And then we lose all of the nature behind us. But that nature supports everything that Franklintown has. So why should we suffer that cost? So those are just some of the points. I made more points the last time, and I'm sorry that I was late. I had a funeral to attend, but I'm glad that you allowed me to speak, so I appreciate it. But those are things that I would ask you to take into consideration. Most of all, the emergency access and the traffic situation we have. We have one way in and one way out, and that's it for us. And now we have to put up with even more traffic. And then what happens when we have an emergency? Is that going to be what it takes to happen before the problem is looked at even further. But thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We get everybody? Okay. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. We will be discussing this later on in the agenda. We have minutes from February 14th. Any comments or questions to the?
Mr. Chairman, I read the minutes on page 5. Let me find it. It's the page 5, 5th paragraph. He further said he has it should be hard, H-A-R-D. It's heart, H-A-R-T. And that's it. Everything else looks great.
Are you making a motion with that correction, Ms. Hoy?
Making a motion with that correction to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. We do have a period for public comment on the agenda. Is there anything other than what's on, we're talking about tonight, that the public would like to bring to our attention? No? Okay. Yes. Yes.
On your new business, your short-term rentals, is that like Airbnbs, those kind of things?
That sort of thing. Yes. Okay, old business, recommendation on the injector well. Mr. Morrison, you have a update for us?
Well, I posted most of the items to the Dropbox. You and I had a conversation. I did not include those in the updated draft. I thought we could have a discussion tonight.
Okay. What, I sent Jim an email after I reviewed the ordinance. And I think that the first one that I recall was that we have 750 feet, I believe, setbacks is what's proposed. And I wanted to make sure that, is there any piece of property in the B district that you would be allowed to put an injector well? Because I don't want to be caught with an exclusionary zoning ordinance.
Great.
So have we had an opportunity to review that, Jim?
Yes, very few. However, there is a provision in the ordinance to have waivers signed by the adjacent property owner.
Say again, sir?
There's a provision in the ordinance to provide for waivers to be signed by adjacent property owners, as is in the Marcellus ordinance. But outright, no.
Okay, so they can get a waiver from an adjoining protected structure.
That's correct.
I don't know whether that flies or not.
I don't know if they,
I mean, what are we how many?
There isn't any.
Oh, there's none. Oh, okay. Well, then okay. I was going to say, if it's under 10%, I mean, that's probably not good, but 0 is worse.
yeah, I don't know, just having a mechanism for a waiver gets you past the fact that on the face, there's no properties that would be
Yeah.
eligible.
So what would you like it to be?
Well, you originally had it as 500 feet, and I don't know whether that's even any better. Is it or no?
I would have to take a look at again.
Okay. All right. Do you have, I don't have my comments here.
They're in my office. I can get them.
Okay. There were some other things in there. Well, Jim's getting that. You know, this ordinance is very similar to the Marcellus Well ordinance. And so the big deal with that ordinance is construction of the well pad and whatnot. That's not the issue with this. The construction of one of these is relatively small. Typically, they already use a well that's there. What is the problem is the long-term operational effects with trucks moving constantly in and out. And so what's the, I think we need to address the traffic issues during operations more if this ordinance were to pass.
The first item was the setbacks.
Pardon me?
The second item was to suggest that the noise study include both operation, not only the construction phase. And what we've done with that, with the Marcellus wells, is made that a condition of approval. The traffic study, is, since this is a land development, it's covered under 201-41 of the SALDO ordinance. Fencing, is that required? The fencing is probably more of a safety issue. But if we're going to require fencing, we could require intensive screening for it.
Well, I don't have a problem with the idea of fencing the operational area. But the ordinance says that you got to build a 8 or 10 foot high fence around the perimeter of the property, which all these properties are down along Route 22. It's going to look, what's my language? It's going to look, not going to look real good.
So I think the point that Bob brought up, Jim, while you were out, was that we really don't know what's the extent of operation. That is, how long will this site be active? That is, this years, or, you know, what determines that?
I guess how much the void is.
That's the question. I mean,
Yeah.
how is that determined, or how is that established?
I think the EPA does the studies.
Yeah, the
I'm not
DEP
certain.
does that.
But I would think it was the EPA in permitting. These wells are permitted by the EPA. Pennsylvania is sort of unique. They also tag on permitting. A lot of states only require the EPA permit. So they go through an extensive review on the, for lack of a better term, the void that they're injecting this material into.
So, you know, with Marcellus, the driller has to have leasing or access to the property that they're going to go under.
That's correct.
And in this case, what limits the area or the lineal area that they could be injecting into?
I don't know that there's any limit.
It's deep enough, right? That's the.
Pardon?
It's deep enough. That's the logic.
That's not the point. The point is, Marcellus is deep enough too. Why would they go into your property even if it's at
I agree.
6,000 feet? So,
Well, the difference is that when they lease the gas rights from Marcellus, they're only sending a pipeline through the leased area. That pipeline and drawing from that Marcellus layer. This is actually a pumping of material into a void, porous shell.
Yeah, I think the dilemma we're facing is that we have a variable geometry, or a geology rather. I mean, we have no idea what is in those areas. And so that sure leaves, we heard about this issue in Ohio where they were claiming to have, tremors and so forth, because they claimed to disturb the, geological formation. So this seems really wide open-ended issue.
It is.
So does the community, or how do the residents get protection, if you will?
Well, this is the same as the Marcellus. We can ask them, we can control the land development, but we can't control the operation, how they do their operation.
Yeah, it's totally out of our control. It's not the municipality's responsibility. It's not in our purview. It's totally up to EPA and DEP for the permitting. We just need a mechanism to allow it to happen someplace so it doesn't go where we do not want it. That's basically it, right?
Thing. It's a where versus how. Yeah. We can say where, but they say how.
Yeah.
I learned the other night that the DEP is now soliciting public input on these things before they issue the permits. As before, it was kind of like after the fact, the public could comment after DEP already made up their mind. So that's one of the questions that DEP and EPA are supposed to look at, to say, is the geology conducive to injecting this material down in there? But as Chris correctly pointed out, we have no say in that part of the fight.
I think what concerns me is the wide range of what the injectable materials are and the chemistry of those materials. That's what I think is most concerning to me. And how, what's the word I'm searching for? How compatible is the geology with whatever they're going to inject into it?
Yeah, I don't know that the chemicals affects the geology as much, although it could affect other things. It's the pressure of the injection that could affect the geology. And I think that's what happened up in Ohio.
What are the injection pressures? Do you know? What's the max? Do you know?
No, I don't know offhand.
Because I mean, when they're fracking a Marcellus well, the pressures get pretty high, hydraulic pressures.
But again, that's just fracking the layer.
Yeah. This is broader.
The next item was landscaping. You can certainly add information for that. Hours of operation. We have hours of operation in the Marcellus well to cover everything but the fracking period. So we could bring those over. It was a good point on the access. Unlike a Marcellus, they're going to have trucks in there all day long. So we can add that to it. And state that other parts of our code may apply. When we did the Marcellus, Bill said we couldn't specifically say that. However, we cover that with it being a land development.
We cannot say that other provisions of our ordinances may apply?
Well, again, it's a land development, so whatever provisions are in the land development or the conditional use would apply.
What about bonding the roads?
Well, the road would be private.
Well, I'm talking about the access of the trucks.
The public roads,
Yeah.
they're required to get an excessive maintenance agreement.
That was another thing too from the Marcellus ordinance. It says you only have to pave the first 50 feet.
Right.
We think we should, all the traveled ways and parking areas should be paved, since this is going to be a continuous flow of traffic. So we don't want mud and dust and all that sort of thing.
Jim, what prevents them from, let's say, fracking to increase the reservoir?
I'm sorry, say.
What would prevent them from fracking to increase the reservoir?
Good question. I don't know that,
What do you mean, Ed?
So they have an existing well. So if they wanted to enhance or increase the volume of what they can pump into, what if they went in and started fracking to create a larger void or a larger reservoir? That's what I'm asking.
well, again, I think that's a how versus a where.
Yeah, I also think there's enough of these shallow wells that can be converted over that I don't think they're just going to move on to the next one. I don't think they're going to spend the cost to frack it.
So that's
Frack something to.
I'd learned another thing that I learned the other night. Mr. Sabosley, who was here from Plum last week, they are talking now about creating a transfer station that with holding tanks there, where people can bring their waste product there and then take and reuse it to at another site.
When I visited the site, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, there are tanks on that site. I assumed that they were holding tanks.
Well, you would think the truck would offload into a holding tank and then eventually pump it down below. But now they're talking about this is going to be a transfer station.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's.
So now you're going to have trucks bringing the stuff plus trucks taking stuff away. It's just going to increase the traffic volume.
Plus the opportunity for spillage and what have you.
Yes.
Well, I think it's even to the point of keeping it in the business district.
One question regarding this other ordinance. You say it's land development, but all the stuff we have on landscaping and lighting and all that other stuff is in our zoning ordinance.
And that applies.
Do it?
Yeah, that's applied to the Marcellus applications.
Okay. All right. What else do we have?
On this, that was it.
Was it?
I will make the updates.
And we will see this, next month?
Yeah.
Okay, is there any comments from any other members of the Planning Commission?
I'm just still kind of confused about the exclusionary side of it. If there's no property that.
Well, I think what we need to find out is what that setback would have to be to make it not exclusionary.
We, when we did the Marcellus ordinance, we had our geo people do mapping. I'll see if I can get that done this time.
Is there an issue with it being exclusionary? Would it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's illegal.
Unconstitutional.
But what's the percentage?
No,
If you
the
have, let's
answer
say you
is
have
0.
one, oh, excuse me. What's the boundary or what's the limit for exclusionary? If you had one property that was, let's say, 500 feet, would that now relieve it from?
Your mic is muted.
So if you had one property that was 500 feet, would that allow us to get under the exclusionary?
That was a big topic of discussion. We did the Marcellus. And the Marcellus is the amount of surface area that is permitted is roughly 12%. But given where the overlay district is and the length of the laterals that they run out, there's a significant portion of Murraysville that can be mined for Marcellus. Now, this is a little bit different in that they're putting it into an existing well. So I think first that the existing wells in Murraysville's going to limit it. And second, I don't know how many are in the business district, if any. But I wouldn't hazard a guess what exclusionary is. That's why they go to court.
You see, I think, the point that was made is these are going to be mostly shallow wells. that makes it, to me, a bigger concern, because now when you're down 6,000 feet or 8,000 feet, you know, you're not likely to affect surface conditions. But if you're at maybe 2,000 feet or 3,000 feet, now all of a sudden you can begin, I think, to start affecting surface, you know, somebody's well, somebody's, you know, water service.
Well, they're not going to be that shallow. I think that they're going to use those old shallow wells that are placeholders that these companies have.
And then they'll drill deeper.
And then go deeper, yes.
Is there something that we want to consider some sort of an overlay district along the business corridor, so to speak?
We may have to consider that if we can't find properties with setbacks.
Not a bad idea.
Okay.
I would not recommend it outside the B district, though, because once you start getting into the residential areas, those are mostly people serviced by wells, water wells.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of out in the, well, first of all, you got trucks traveling back and forth, so you don't want it out in the R district anyway. I think you'd want to confine it to the Route 22 corridor. And I would not want this overlay to be a giant overlay, just to get us out of the exclusionary business.
All right, well, let me take a look at that. I'll have the maps drawn up. I may not have the maps by next meeting, but I'll try to get it done.
Okay. Anything else on that issue? No? Okay, the next item is a discussion regarding the rezoning application. Anyone care to take a bite of this? Brian, you're going to abstain.
I am, yes.
Okay. Gentlemen, lady.
Well, we
Miss
know
Eyeball?
we know about the issues out there, right? That's no surprise. But those issues don't stop development on its own. This property could be developed as it's zoned, albeit at a lesser, it would be less dense at R1.
4 instead of 5, right?
Is that what we're talking about?
Well, that's only, it's the same issue. This is just for discussion purposes. The proposal is 5 instead of 4 in the R1, but that's if they only develop that, 6 acres or whatever. But there's that whole other piece that I know would be expensive to develop because of the topography.
Yep.
Yeah.
But could be developed.
When I heard some of the comments about disturbing the topography and the water retention capability, just looking at the drawing, it's my understanding that that wouldn't be disturbed. Is that true or false?
Well, I don't think you could get too tied up right now in what the proposed development is going to be. I mean, they've been forthcoming in having some studies done as to what's the most feasible to them.
Right.
But, you know, the problem with rezoning is once you rezone it,
it's rezoned.
It's, you know, you can do whatever you want to with it within those confines. It does not look like from what they've shown us that it's
probable,
that it's anything, all that, there's not going to be all that much disturbed, other than pretty much what's already been disturbed.
Jim, is there any future plans for that bridge?
Yes, it's on the tip plan.
What's the time
Had
frame?
some preliminary design work done on it.
What's the time frame, Jiminy?
Depends on availability of funds, how we get positioned on the tip plan. That's a transportation improvement plan at state level. But we are aware of the situation now.
Yeah, we all are.
What about a stop sign up on the top? Any thoughts on that? Initial thoughts
It
on
would
that?
have to be warranted.
Yeah.
So we could take a look at that.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what the one comment that I forget who made it about when
Oh, the
the
trails.
original Clifton Vista was developed, whether there was a commitment to leave that as
I have
open,
that noted here. Mr.
open
Chairman.
space. Yeah, I'd like to delve into that a little bit.
I'll look at, excuse me. I'll look at the approval.
Okay. And anyone else have any comments? Do you want, what's the planning commission's pleasure on this? Do you want to make a recommendation this evening to council, or do you want to wait and get more information?
Bob, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So how many homes could they build R1 versus R2?
I don't have the answer to that.
Get a ballpark here, probably.
I can tell you.
Jim's looking that up right now, Jay.
Just 1 acre lots are required in an R1, 20,000 square feet in R2, half acre.
Right?
Yes. So what did you say the green area was? How many acres is that, sir?
So green area is around 6 acres.
6 acres?
And the remaining area, even though it seems 19 acres, it's not economically feasible to build, to move all that land.
Right.
You're going to create a lot of disturbance. So we have looked into all that with the soil engineer, and the recommendation is not to touch that area because of it's going to be very expensive to begin with, and it's not going to be worth, even if you build that many homes, the economical benefit is not there to even touch that area. So we are only focusing on that green area with very little disturbance, because there is already a road that is going up there, and that area has already there was already a home, so that area has already been flattened to build the homes. And in the back area, so that will allow us to move the area facing the Logan County Road into half acres. Even if you don't go for R2, if within the R1 we can split that into 2 R1 1 acre lots already. So even if if we go by R1, and if we decide to build 5 homes, we can do that, but it will be more expensive to cut a little bit hill area in the back and create another 1 acre lot in the back. We can do that, but to avoid that, we are saying, okay, if we go for R2, we don't have to move any of the hilly area in the back. We just build half acre lots in the front. So that was the, and we are building it for ourselves. It is not that we are building and selling it to somebody else. We are building 2 homes for ourselves, the partners, and 3 are being given to our friends. So it's not that, we are making a big commercial out of it. The land price that you're paid and the amount of money that we'll be putting in for the civil and all the work, it will be like breaking even. It's not like a big commercial exercise out of this project.
So you could get the same number of lots, but you just disturb more land.
Yes, in R1, if I decide to go for 5 units, I can do that. It's just that I will be disturbing more land, and it won't be economically feasible to do that as well. If I decide to make a better use of the land, I can do that, but I don't think we'll go that route. Because since we'll be living there, we want to make sure we live in a nice area, keeping the natural beauty of the land as well. So, because we are vested into the property, it's not like we are building and selling it to somebody. That's the intent.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Jane?
Yes, so they can get the same amount of lots with a little bit more earthwork.
Right. What if we, just as an aside, what if we move this on to council with the provision that it doesn't violate any previous covenants or agreements?
You can, if you want to put that in.
I make a motion that we forward to council tax parcel 4910130014 Logan's Ferry Road from R1 residential to R2 residential, with the proviso or limitation that previous covenants don't prevent this development.
That's your motion.
That's the motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Let me ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Sure, certainly.
The size of this wouldn't dictate a traffic study
No,
because we're talking about 5 lots.
right. I think our ordinance only
It's
was 30.
I think they also already did a traffic study when they were proposing R3. So we have a worst-case scenario
Right.
if this was maybe developed.
well, yeah, they did that limited trip generation.
Yeah, there's no, I don't believe that anybody's
No one's
put a
analyzed this,
count
no.
out there on the highway, correct? No one has done that.
I mean, the reality is 5 homes aren't materially going to change what's happening out there, in my opinion, as far as traffic or anything else. What was the reason for trying to rezone the whole property, the tax parcel as it sits, instead of just this piece, just this portion of it that you're looking to develop?
We had proposed that in the beginning, and we were told that we cannot do spot zoning, so it has to be done for the entire property. So that was the reason that was given when we had first submitted our application back in 2022.
Jim, there's no reason why they couldn't have applied for a subdivision.
They would have had to subdivide it first and then just rezone that piece.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen zoning that does not follow property lines. Is that something in our ordinance specifically that says it must follow?
No, but that would be the cleanest way to do it.
Well, I understand that would be the cleanest way,
We
but
have properties in Murraysville that have 2 zoning districts on it.
say that again?
We have properties in Murraysville that have 2 zoning districts.
Is that an option here?
I mean,
And they have to-
yeah, that's,
Well,
I would
guess what-
recommend they subdivide before they do that.
oh, what would be the point, Chris?
well, I think, we're hearing that this is, that other property is not developable, and it might not be feasible to do it economically, but it's
Yeah.
possible. It would limit that, that's all.
I see your point.
Yeah.
It might provide some comfort to the public that it stays R1 for that section.
Are you implying that you would only rezone the green area as R1?
As R2, yeah.
As R2? Is that what you're saying? Not R3, right?
That's what I would do if it were me, yes. I think,
That's what was proposed almost 1 year back. So we have gone through all the hardship, and then again we are going back to the square one. I think.
Well, why not subdivide it and rezone it to R2, where he wants to develop, and leave the other parcel R1?
That's what he's saying.
that's what I'm
That's what we're
saying.
thinking, yeah.
I don't know that a subdivision, I mean, I understand that would be cleaner, but I've seen it done with legal descriptions, surveys and legal descriptions for describing the portion to be rezoned rather than going through the process of subdividing it first.
Well, subdivision could run concurrent with the land development.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, it would anyways.
Lot, so
Yeah.
it would be an administrative.
Could be. No, I mean, you would do it concurrently. I think that would be the best way to do it.
How do you get to the land development application without the rezoning first, though?
You don't.
That's the problem. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? There is no second. Is there another motion someone would care to make? Someone want to make a motion to table this since you're obviously not ready to make a motion?
I would make the comment and a suggestion that I would support it if we weren't zoning the whole property, rezoning the whole property.
I understand your point, but this thing was already discussed like several meetings. I mean, this is like my 5th or 6th meeting. So we are going back to the same comment that was proposed. That was the thing that we had proposed by our lawyer as well when we first presented, and we were told that that is not possible. So this is our second application. So we have gone through a lot of financial hardship as well with the different parties, and time as well. We have lost like significant time. So again, we have to go back. And what is the guarantee that in the next meeting I come back again? Then there is no other discussion.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I agree. I brought it up at the very first time I saw this thing. Why are we rezoning the whole property? And
But the initial proposal was R3 too.
Yes.
It's a little different than this.
Yeah, that was
True.
That's just what I recall the original app.
And the concern was
R3.
that's a lot of R3
Yes.
compared to what we're considering now, which is a little bit more
Okay,
feasible.
so let's just back up.
Well, and I think too, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that spot zoning issue could have come up when discussing subdivision under R3 because you're now separating that parcel from the R3 that's up behind it.
Right.
So you have it would have been R3, R1, then R3 again. So that was a little bit different.
Now, the initial proposal also came in, and we heard a lot from the residents on that. Those three parcels in the middle were going to get rezoned as well. And now they're not? Now we're leaving islands in there?
Yeah.
So that's to my point, again.
No, we're not leaving islands there because those properties are zoned
R1.
I think there are two.
I think there are.
They are R1.
Yeah,
They're
R1.
R1. They're all R1, yes.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. If we were just...
Yeah, they are R1, but they don't meet the R1 definition. They are a lot
right.
lesser than R1.
Yeah.
So it will be in the interest of those three houses as well in the future. If they have to do something, it will help them too to meet the zoning requirement.
Well, my suggestion, gentlemen, is that you table this until you're ready to come up with a definitive
That to me
solution.
doesn't sit real well because I think we're just kicking a can down the road. I mean,
No, you're kicking it down the road to the next meeting because obviously we can't get a motion here to make a recommendation to council. So you guys obviously need some time to think about this and make a motion.
And the other thing is, even if you delay it to the next meeting, what is the new information that is going to come, that is going to change? Because since last several meetings, there has not been any. I mean, the new information is that the lesser density homes, it's a cleaner layout with less disturbance to the land. I don't think we'll have any new information based on the proposal.
Well, the only information we have is what Mr. Morrison's going to delve into as to what was there when Clifton Vista was developed.
Put my screen on the council screens, please. There you go.
Okay. It's not Clifton Vista PRD.
No.
No.
So that little tail that goes up by Franklin Town, that's not even proposed to be disturbed at all. Is that right?
Yes, actually, if
Like right
we-
here, right?
Actually, it will be in the interest. If you see the current, I have been on the property several times. Actually, the water from that townhomes upstairs, up above the hill, actually comes and that is eroding the hill. So if we have to develop, I think it will be in the interest because then we'll be looking at how we take care of the stormwater as well, and will prevent that erosion as well. So in the way, I think we'll be helping the cause rather than, making it worse.
Well, could you make a motion that the 6 acres be rezoned to R2?
Again, the 6 acre is approximate number.
Right.
I don't know for sure.
And subdivided? You want to make that as a motion? I mean, I don't know whether you even get a second for it.
Can we do that?
We can do anything we want. Whether it's legal or not, I don't know.
You're saying that subdivision can happen as an administrative thing as opposed to, so that, you're saying would not be as painful as having to go through,
It's just a 2-lot subdivision.
what's the process for them? They have to come back in here with a subdivision?
Yeah, which basically they're going to do anyhow to lay the property lines, to have it rezoned.
Well, why do we need to, I'm still confused as to why we need to make them go through that first. The subdivision.
So when would you require the subdivision? Or you wouldn't?
You could require it when the property's developed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just lay out the boundary ahead of time, you know, have it described with an exhibit.
Yeah.
A survey type exhibit would show the meets and bounds of it. I think you have to have the meets and bounds if we're not taking the whole parcel. That's the only extra thing you would have to produce for us, I believe.
So, looking at it from his point of view, let's say we go through that process, and he's now got the zoning where it has to be, and he's now going to make the next move. What hurdles are going to be put in front of him at that point?
I mean, no
By us.
different than by us.
By whoever's sitting here.
I don't think we can do anything at that point if he's meeting the ordinance.
You can meet the ordinance.
Well,
Yeah,
the
he's-
land development plan would come before planning commission. The subdivision would come through at the same time.
My concern is rezoning this, given the issues out there, given the concern from the community. And at some point, you know, as Mr. Maital will attest, at some point, the property that no one wanted becomes feasible to develop as the economy moves along. That's what we're developing now. It's ground that everyone passed off on, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago and said, oh, no, you can't build there. No one will ever build there. Well, that's what we're dealing with now. You know, like I said, I would support it. Can we make that an motion?
You can make a motion. Floor is open.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval and pass this on to council if the applicant amends the application to include only the 6 acres for the proposed development for the rezoning.
Yeah, meets the covenants.
Yeah, it needs any covenants.
And meets any other covenants that were out there from that are imposed on the property.
I'll second.
Is it 6 acres or 4.6?
So I don't know for sure precisely how much acreage that, it was just a approximate circle that I.
So we'll
square
say
that I-
approximately
Yeah,
5
I'll have
acres.
to discuss with the civil engineer and make sure that boundary area.
Plus or minus 5 acres.
That works.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Abstain.
And 1 abstention, so it's 5 yeses, 1 abstention. Okay.
No more meeting.
So what is the conclusion? I'm still, what is the consequence?
Prepare an exhibit showing the portion of the property that you're going to develop and you're going to need a legal description of that, like an exhibit showing the meets and bounds and a legal description of the
Survey.
perimeter of it. What was that?
Survey.
A survey. You're going to need a survey.
Essentially a survey, paper survey, just showing that perimeter outline.
And do I have to submit that before the council meeting, or how does
I'll need that as part of the planning committee, or the council meeting.
Yeah, that should be fairly simple.
Okay,
Thank you.
moving along. New business. Discussion concerning proposed ordinance requirements for short-term rentals in the municipality of Murraysville.
I provided some information to you in the Dropbox that was a recent Supreme Court decision pertaining to short-term rentals and a model ordinance. I wanted to get your thoughts before we start preparing the ordinance.
Is this one of those things that we have to provide a
Provide
use?
for?
Yeah.
Yes, we could provide for them in the B district. We could provide.
No, that's not the question. Do we
Yes,
have to
the
provide
use.
for this use?
Yes, I would say yes.
Okay.
And I think the eligible districts are the B district and the MU district.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want this in the residential districts. And gentlemen, ladies, what's your thoughts on this?
I had posted in there,
Say again, Jim?
I had posted in the Dropbox the definitions of dwelling and family.
We have this Jefferson Township ordinance.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
Yes.
The court defined those in that court case, Jim. That's it. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Supreme Court overturned Commonwealth Court.
Yeah, so does this definition that's in this ordinance, is that the same as,
I think it would have to be tweaked to the decision. The Jefferson Township decision or ordinance was proposed prior to the Supreme Court decision. So there would need to be some wordsmithing and some definition changes probably in our ordinance.
okay, so we've got to, this is, obviously requires more
Yeah.
study.
I wanted your feeling on proceeding with it and any comments that you may have.
In our current use table, are these types of uses provided for?
No.
I assume we have like at least hotel.
Yes.
Is there anything like a bed and breakfast or anything like that?
I do not believe so.
There's hotels and motels and whatnot, but certainly nothing on,
I mean, I think with the way things are now that we should definitely address it. I don't know that many people come to Murraysville for Airbnbs, but you never know.
There are a couple.
There are
I just
some.
looked online. There's
You'd be surprised.
3
Really?
yeah, one in Explorer, 2 in Murraysville, and a couple in Monroeville.
Definitions. What were you looking for a definition of?
B&Bs or short-term rental.
No. Neither one of those are defined in the definitions.
So, well, let's ask the pertinent question here, a couple pertinent questions. Everybody's in favor of having an ordinance, right, regulating this. Is everybody in favor of putting him in the B and the MU districts?
Yes.
I think that, yeah.
Bob, say that again. I'm having some trouble hearing you. Say that one more time, please.
Can you read lips?
No.
Well, the first question was, is everyone in favor of having an ordinance regulating short-term rentals? The majority said yes.
If we have to.
Yes, we have to.
Okay, well then there's your answer.
Okay, then the other part is we're going to put these, or only allow these as a conditional use, I assume, in the business and MU districts.
Well, what if I want to rent my house out when I'm not there?
That's why we don't want this to happen.
It would be short-term rentals. And we would have to define that.
So where I am in Florida, there are places where you can rent a house for a week or a weekend, but my house is in a relatively residential year-round community. And so I cannot rent this house for less than 28 days. I don't think you should restrict people from being able to rent their home if they're going to go to Florida for 3 months. But if you have a 28-day rental, you typically get families, it's not teenagers coming in on Friday night, raising hell and leaving on Sunday. So I'm just putting that out there. That's the way the ordinance is down here.
The model ordinance that was in the Dropbox defines short-term rental as any structure or portion of any structure for occupancy, dwelling, lodging, or sleeping purposes for at least 2 consecutive nights, but no more than 30 consecutive calendar days in duration.
But you
only want to have it in the B and the MU district.
Right.
I don't like that.
Well, if we define the time frame that Jim just mentioned, if you got a single family home and you're in Florida for 3 months, that doesn't prevent
Wouldn't fall under it.
Yeah, it wouldn't prevent you from renting your house for those 3 months. This is for transient.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm okay with that.
Why does it say short-term for at least 2 consecutive nights, but no more than 30 consecutive nights? What happens if it's 1 night?
Huh?
They give you a free night. Rent it for 2 nights.
I mean, why does it say that?
I don't know.
Perfect. You want some ice?
So there shouldn't be any.
Yeah.
Well, we could just say short-term rentals are restricted to the MU and B district.
Yeah, and it's no more than
30 days or
No more than 30.
no more than 30 days. Forget the
The definition would be no more than 30, yeah.
yeah.
Would it be no fewer than 30 days?
No, because then if you're defining it, right, short-term rental would be less.
Okay, be less
Anything
than-
over,
right,
yeah.
okay.
So there is a home out there on Airbnb in an R2 district currently available for rent that has
Good. Cheers.
4.93 stars, high reviews.
This is the last.
Yeah, well.
Just as a point.
14 reviews, so 14 times people have used it and left a...
And it's recent.
Wow.
First one is August of 20.
David spaghetti. I'm good.
Okay, so, and then there's insurance requirements and...
Thank you, dear.
Also, we should have inspection requirements in there.
Yes, prior to the issuance of permit under short term shall permit the code officer to inspect the rental unit to ensure the rental unit is in compliance with the property maintenance code. Do we have the property maintenance code?
Mm-hmm.
We did, okay.
Just a thought that popped in my head. If there's a requirement for a permit each time someone comes in, and let's say something does pop up in the MU that's going to be used as a bed and breakfast type of thing, is that going to overtax our code enforcement officer that they could potentially have to go inspect every week?
I don't see a whole lot of it happening, but I would encourage enforcement, because you just don't want these properties to get run down.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to read this and study this and raise our comments and objections, but do you have your marching orders there, Mr. Morrison?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else you need from us other than read it and make objections to everything we see?
Yep.
Chocolate, you might like that. You should just take it.
Are you mumbling something, Ms. Hoy?
No, I got people behind me that are mumbling a little bit. They just came back from dinner. It's okay. I'm good.
Okay.
So they're going to
I
have
would
to come
like
in and get a permit for that,
Review
right?
this ordinance.
Yes.
Each time?
No, for the year, I'm assuming? Or
Yeah.
The way this reads, that's why I brought it up. The way this reads is for each time, each short-term
No.
rental.
That would
That's too much.
Yeah, that's,
no.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe once every couple,
I was going to
3
say
years.
two, yeah.
Not
maybe.
every time.
I don't know that I don't know how many of these we're going to have, but regardless, I don't know if if the municipality wants to be reviewing these and pushing paper around.
Yeah. Well, or you could say every 2 months, 3 months.
I take that back. I was reading that as we're sitting here. This was a yearly permit.
Okay.
In this ordinance, it is a yearly.
You're gonna have an inspector come once a year.
No.
And what are the parameters that he's inspecting? Smoke detectors?
It would be under the property maintenance code. We do that now with rentals.
Yeah. Every time somebody moves it out, right?
Right.
And this, I know we're using this as a model. This does reference the International Property Maintenance Code.
Yeah, that's the standard.
Yeah.
All right, anything else for Mr. Morrison on this? No? Okay. When do you think you'll have this
I'll have something next meeting.
next meeting? Oh, that's right, you don't have anything else to do now.
Nope.
Okay. Is there any other business?
Nope.
Nope. What do we have on our agenda? What's coming up?
Well, not too much. Haven't seen anything lately. Kafori pulled his application for the soccer fields.
Before they pulled those? Oh, what happened, what about the guy through Ficione?
Ficione is working his way through probably an advisory to develop it as an RR property.
Okay. All right. What about the wet get-go? Is that?
The wet get-go has a little bit of a problem. Apparently PennDOT is recommending a left-hand turning lane on Old William Penn because they closed off the two entrances.
Well,
Are they going to create another entrance then to the wet go, or?
I think, yeah, they would have to.
Right.
But the wet go people have the recommendation from PennDOT now. I haven't seen anything back from them.
when you say a left-hand turn lane, from which direction are we talking?
I think it's heading north. I mean, east.
East.
From Export towards Burrysville.
That'd be west. That would be west.
Oh, putting in a turn lane on Old William Penn to turn into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes that whole giant eagle entrance a mess.
PennDOT's requiring that or requesting that.
Yep.
I can't do this.
How does PennDOT get to say anything about this?
I don't know. They want the municipality to sign off on the recommended mitigation.
I mean, they closed 2 entrances to that parcel. There's only one entrance into the get-go for the gas station and the car wash.
That may be the solution, that they open up one of those entrances.
Maybe the solution to do what, Jim?
To open up one of those entrances that they,
Into the car wash.
all the traffic was supposed to come through the existing get-go.
Well, that's what
Closed
you should
off,
do.
the 2 entrances there were standard bank, the curb cuts, put a sidewalk in. So as a result of that, PennDOT said you gotta mitigate that.
I sprayed that.
Municipality. However, I think that if they would open up one of those driveways, that they probably.
Off of Old 22.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those no good deed goes unpunished?
Pretty much.
Right.
We're trying to limit accesses on Old William Penn.
I don't see how PennDOT can,
Well,
they have enough trouble taking care of their own roads, let alone telling us what we should do with ours.
Yeah. Well,
So
if we're willing to sign
they
off
already
on
have
it,
access to Old
fine.
22 from the get-go, correct?
Say
Got a
again?
PennDOT permit for that driveway.
Off of
How can they
22.
change that?
Yeah. They need a highway occupancy off of 22.
Old 22.
No, new 22.
New 22.
Yeah. But they're asking for a left turn lane on Old 22. Is that
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
That's what we're saying, Jane, that they don't really have sway, is what we're saying.
No, I think it's ridiculous. That's just me.
Okay, so
We
what
have
else?
the traffic engineer reviewing it now. Wedco has it, so I haven't seen anything back from them yet.
Any other possible projects coming down the road here?
Nope.
What are we doing about rewriting this zoning ordinance?
Council seems to want to put a special committee together to take a look at the zoning ordinance. My recommendation would be that they go through the comprehensive plan update first. So I'm sure it's going to come up again when the Logan's Ferry zoning comes up.
Okay. All right. Nothing else to report? Gentlemen, anything? Have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second, all those in
Do
favor
it.
say
I make a
aye.
motion.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Good night, guys.
Good night.